Ladies and gentlemen, hear me clearly today. There is a reason your spirit wakes in the silent hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. That is not a coincidence. That is not just your bladder. That is not indigestion. That is the realm where your soul is most sensitive, your heart most alert, and your mind most open. It is not the time to roll over. It is the time to rise. You see, in those early hours, the world is quiet, but heaven is active. The distractions are gone. The noise has faded. And what remains is the whisper of purpose, the pull of destiny, the gentle voice of your Creator speaking not to your ears, but to your spirit. If you've been waking up at that time, stop asking why. Start asking what. What am I supposed to hear? What am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to change? This is not superstition. This is not mysticism. This is divine alignment. The ancients called it the hour of the Spirit, the hour when visions are clearer, when direction is stronger, and when your internal compass gets recalibrated. And yet, so many sleep through it, unaware that their destiny knocked and found them snoring. If you wake up during that window, do not go to your phone, do not go to your fridge, go to your knees. That's the hour of surrender. That's when you are most vulnerable, and in your vulnerability, you are most powerful. When you pray in that hour, your words carry weight. When you listen in that hour, clarity is born. When you write in that hour, vision becomes visible. And if you dare to be still in that moment, if you dare to open your heart, you will find that the answers you were chasing during the day were waiting for you in the night. The strategy for your business, the peace for your marriage, the idea for your next season, it's in that hour. But it will not scream. It whispers. If your eyes open at 3:17 Ion, it is not an accident. Get up, sit still, ask questions, write what you hear, speak what you believe. That hour is not just quiet for rest. It is sacred for revelation. Some people beg for direction, while others are being invited into it. So what you do in those moments will determine what you carry in the daylight. Let me take you deeper now. You must understand, those early morning hours are a divine appointment. It is not your alarm that wakes you. It is your assignment. It is not fatigue or anxiety pulling you out of sleep. It is a summons. A spiritual interruption designed to deliver an impartation. And the reason so many miss the magnitude of these moments is because they have not been trained to recognize the value of the stillness between 3 and 5 is not emptiness. It is fullness waiting to be revealed. And when you consistently awaken in those hours, something is being stirred in you. Perhaps it is an instruction. Perhaps it is an idea. Or maybe it's correction. But more often than not, it is preparation. And God never prepares without purpose. He doesn't wake you up just to keep you up. He wakes you up to grow you up. He's stretching your spirit so your character can catch up to your calling. Most people are trying to solve tomorrow's problems with yesterday's mindset. But between 3 and 5 a.m., you're in a realm where the old patterns lose their grip and new thoughts can take root. You are in the soil of your next season. That's when clarity is planted and identity is watered. That's where you don't just learn what to do, you discover who you are. Do not take it lightly. In those hours, the veil is thinner. The noise is quieter. You don't have to perform. You don't have to pretend. You just have to be present. That's where truth shows up. That's where conviction is felt. That's where destiny doesn't knock politely. It breaks in like a flood. And let me tell you something. In that hour, God will start asking you questions. Deep questions. Uncomfortable questions. Questions that will make you shift. Questions that will make you weep. He will ask, why are you running? He will ask, why are you settling? He will ask, who told you you weren't enough? And you will answer, not with your mouth, but with your life. There is something about that window of time that forces honesty. You can't lie to yourself at 3:30 in the morning. You can't fake purpose at 4:07. You can't hide behind distractions when the world is silent. That's when your soul speaks. That's when your excuses sound weak. That's when your calling sounds loud. Now listen, this is not about religion. This is not about trying to be spiritual to impress anybody. This is not about posting your quiet time online. This is about alignment. This is about positioning yourself where heaven can reach you without interference. This is about showing up when others are asleep, because your calling is not ordinary. And I must say this, what you do between 3 and 5 a.m. will determine how you live between 5 and midnight. If you invest in your spirit early, you will not be bankrupt in your emotions later. If you get your direction when the day begins, you won't be lost when the pressure hits. You won't be tossed by every opinion. You won't be shaken by temporary storms, because you've already stood in the presence of eternal truth. Some of you are praying for doors to open, but you ignore the hour where the key is given. Some of you are begging for peace, but you reject the hour where your heart can finally be still. Some of you are frustrated by delay, unaware that your instructions have been arriving in the dark. But you keep hitting snooze on your assignment. It's not enough to wake up, you must respond. Waking is natural, responding is spiritual. And it's what you do when you're awake that determines whether the moment becomes a memory or a miracle. Do not go back to sleep. Even if you don't hear anything, stay present. Even if you feel nothing, stay faithful. Even if it feels awkward, stay available. That's what separates those who dream from those who build what they dream. Now, let me speak to the one who says, but I'm tired. I hear you. I know fatigue is real, but purpose is stronger. When you rise in obedience, grace will meet you. When you answer the call in the night, strength will find you in the morning. God doesn't wake you up to drain you. He wakes you up to fill you. He wakes you up to give you something you can get during the noise of the day. He wakes you up because he knows the day ahead will demand something deeper than routine. The hour between 3 and 5 a.m. is not just spiritual, it's strategic. It's when your creativity is pure. It's when your emotions haven't yet been tangled. It's when your intuition is untouched by noise. That's when businesses are born. That's when books are written. That's when sermons are downloaded. That's when visions become visible. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs don't come in conferences or stadiums. They come in living rooms at 422 IMing with a notebook and a surrendered heart. They come in whispers, in tears, in silence, in obedience. And if you keep showing up day after day, something will break, something will shift. Not out there, but in here. Because the biggest miracle of those hours is not that you hear God, it's that you become someone who can. That's the transformation. That's the reward. You stop reacting to life and you start creating with heaven. You stop surviving and you start leading. You stop asking for signs. When you honor that time, you start to notice the patterns of heaven. You see connections you missed before. You make decisions with courage. You walk into meetings already full. You parent with patience. You lead with conviction. Why? Because your spirit got fed before the world touched your flesh. Because you were wise enough to wake up when it mattered. And let me caution you, don't judge those hours by how they feel. Sometimes it will feel dry. Sometimes it will feel pointless. Sometimes you'll wonder why you're even awake. But keep going. It's not about the feeling. It's about formation. In those early hours, God is forming a deeper version of you. He's stripping away distractions. He's fine-tuning your frequency. He's carving out space in your soul for the next level of assignment. And the more you show up, the clearer it gets. Suddenly, the noise of life doesn't drown you. Suddenly, the opinions of people don't shake you. Suddenly, you walk with a quiet authority because you've been somewhere most won't go. You've sat in the stillness. You've embraced the silence. You've received what can be bought, taught, or inherited. It can only be encountered. That hour is where generals are trained, where pioneers are instructed, where healers are equipped, where messengers are refined. That's where weight is added to your words, where strategy is added to your prayers, where power is added to your presence. You don't just walk into the day, you are sent into it. There's something so holy, so fierce about a person who rises before the world does. Not for ambition, but for alignment. Not for hustle, but for clarity. Not to impress, but to obey. That kind of person becomes unstoppable. Not because they are loud, but because they are grounded. Not because they are talented, but because they are trained. Not by man, but by the whisper of God in the secret place. I challenge you, don't ignore that nudge. Don't silence that pull. Don't negotiate with that still, small voice. Wake up, get up, be still, listen, write, speak, receive, because what happens between 3 and 5 a.m. might not make sense to others, but it will make history through you. And as you continue to rise in those sacred hours, something remarkable begins to happen. Not just around you, but within you. Patterns shift. Habits begin to lose their grip. The things that once consumed your energy start to look smaller. Fear begins to feel like a foreign language. Insecurity starts to dissolve in the presence of consistency. And you begin to realize that the miracle was never outside. It was always in the rhythm of discipline and the atmosphere of surrender. Between 3 and 5 a.m., you are in the womb of transformation. It's not dramatic. It's not always emotional. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes just a single word, a single sentence, a name that drops into your spirit, a picture that flashes across your mind. And that's enough. That's how destiny works. It doesn't always come with thunder. It often arises as a whisper that only the hungry can hear. Oh, I thank you for being a part of our community today. So what are you direction will never be found in the noise. It will be found in those ancient hours where heaven meets earth and spirit overrides flesh. That's where you remember why you're here. That's where you remember why you're here. That's where your original assignment gets reactivated. That's where you shed the layers that life has put on you. Layers of fear, guilt, pride, distraction. And you come back to the core of who you were created to be. There is power in showing up for your own soul before the sun rises. It's not about being spiritual for the sake of performance. It's about prioritizing your inner world so that your outer world does not unravel you. And if you keep showing up, even when it feels dry, something sacred starts to build inside of you. You develop spiritual endurance, mental clarity, emotional maturity. And those are the very things that sustain greatness when opportunities come knocking. We are in a generation that wants quick answers, instant results, public platforms. But very few want private refinement. Very few are willing to rise when the world sleeps and let God do the work behind the scenes. But those who do, they carry something that can't be explained. They walk into rooms and shift atmospheres. They speak with weight. They live with focus. They move with grace under pressure. Why? Because they've met with the King in the cool of the morning. They've heard his voice when the world was silent. They've wrestled with purpose in the dark and emerged with a limp called wisdom. It's in those hours that ego dies. It's in those hours that entitlement is stripped. You begin to realize that your gifting alone is not enough. Talent might open doors, but only intimacy with God will teach you what to do once you walk through them. The early hours where he teaches you how to handle power with humility, how to carry influence with integrity, how to pursue purpose without poisoning your soul with ambition. And that kind of formation is slow, it is quiet, it is hidden, but it is priceless. When you rise between 3 and 5 a.m. consistently, you begin to live from a deeper place. Your decisions are not just reactions. They are responses from a place of alignment. You're no longer driven by survival. You're moved by revelation. You don't just plan your day, you discern it. You don't just lead with strategy, you lead with vision. You walk into your day knowing that heaven has already spoken, and your steps are not just routine, they are ordered. Now, it doesn't mean the day won't bring chaos. It doesn't mean the challenges disappear. But it does mean that your center is anchored. Your perspective is clear. Your spirit is alert. And your peace is not negotiable. And let me remind you, there is no formula for these hours. It's not about the perfect posture or the perfect words. It's about the heart. Some mornings you will cry. Some mornings you will sit in silence. Some mornings you will write until the sun rises. Others you will pace the room praying under your breath. And that's okay. It's not about the method. It's about the posture of surrender. Some mornings all you will have is, "Speak, Lord, I'm listening." And that's enough. Some mornings you will read a single sentence from Scripture and it will follow you all day like a divine echo. Some mornings you will ask questions and get no answers. But peace will fill the silence like a promise. Don't look for fireworks, look for fruit. Peace is fruit. Clarity is fruit. Courage is fruit. Conviction is fruit. Humility is fruit. These are the things that grow in the garden of early obedience. And let me say this. Not everyone will understand your rhythm. Not everyone will see the value of those early hours. They will think you're being too intense. They will say you need more sleep. They will wonder why you're not as available as before. But let them wonder. You are not living for applause. You're living for assignment. And the cost of clarity is often misunderstanding. But clarity is worth it. When others sleep through destiny, you are awake to build it. When others are numbing pain, you are confronting truth. When others are wandering, you are walking in direction. Not because you're better, but because you chose to answer the call when it was inconvenient. And if you keep choosing it, if you keep rising even when it's hard, you will begin to live differently. You will begin to love differently. You will forgive quicker. You will speak slower. You will move with grace. You will build with wisdom. Because your inner world has been ordered by heaven, and that order will overflow into everything you touch. I dare you to take those hours seriously. I dare you to treat them like a sacred invitation. Because when you do, heaven will begin to trust you with more. More insight, more responsibility, more revelation. Not for fame, but for impact. Not for clout, but for influence that breaks chains. Not for platforms, but for people. Because God is not looking for the loudest. He's looking for the most available. And sometimes availability looks like rising at 4:13 Iomain with heavy eyes but a willing heart. It looks like walking through your living room whispering prayers when you'd rather be asleep. It looks like opening your journal in the dark and writing down the dream you just had because you know it meant something. It looks like asking, who can I serve today? When your flesh wants to say, who will serve me? You begin to live a life that is not reactive, but responsive. You don't chase moments, you create them. You don't beg for purpose, you embody it. And that all begins in the hours that nobody sees. This is where revival starts. Not in the crowds, in the closets, not in the noise, in the stillness. Not with ambition, but with surrender. The revival of your mind, your identity, your vision. It all begins when you say yes in the dark. Keep waking, keep listening, keep showing up. Even if your mind doesn't understand it, your spirit does. It knows. This is where transformation lives. This is where real change happens. Not in the excitement of the day, but in the discipline of the dawn. Because those hours are not just empty time, they are sacred soil. And the seeds you plant there will bear fruit in every area of your life. You will begin to attract what you're aligned with. You will begin to recognize doors that were invisible before. You will begin to release what no longer fits and embrace what was always yours. Not because you tried harder, but because you listened better. So rise, and when you do, know that the unseen work of those hours is shaping a future that will reflect not just your effort, but your obedience. Not just your plans, but heaven's strategy. Not just your desire, but your design. And when the world asks, how did you get here? You'll smile quietly, because they'll never fully understand what was built in the silence between 3 and 5 in the morning. And as the days pass and you make this sacred time a lifestyle rather than an experiment, the change becomes undeniable. You begin to sense when something is out of alignment, not because someone told you, but because you have trained your spirit in stillness. Your discernment sharpens. You can walk into a room and feel the temperature of the atmosphere, not with fear, but with authority. You begin to understand that you were never meant to live on the surface of life. You were built to live deep, to live intentionally, to live with purpose that flows out of a well that never runs dry. You may not always have the words for what's happening, but you will feel the shift. The same habits that once had power over you start to weaken. The distractions that once called for your attention lose their appeal. You begin to crave different things: silence over noise, depth over performance, calling over convenience. That is the quiet fruit of consecration. That is the evidence that your private surrender is doing more than any public declaration ever could. There is a mystery to this hour. A mystery that is not meant to be explained, but experienced. It is the hour the way to the future meets the breath of the present. It is the hour where your tears become language, where your questions become conversation, where your fears are placed on the altar and exchanged for faith. Not the kind of faith that shouts, but the kind that stands. The kind that endures. The kind that knows it has already heard from heaven and therefore refuses to be shaken by earth. People often ask how to walk in authority. The answer is simple, but not easy. Get under it. Submit your schedule, your ego, your opinions, your ambitions. When you rise early, you're not just giving time, you're surrendering control. You're saying, not my will, not my rhythm, not my agenda. Speak, lead, shape me. And it is there in the quiet that true authority is born. Not because you demanded it, but because heaven trusted you with it. You do not get divine power without divine presence. You do not get divine presence without divine priority. That's why this time is so critical. Not because it's magical, but because it's prioritized. You have chosen to meet with the King before you meet with the world. And when you do that consistently, your life becomes marked. Your words carry weight. Your eyes carry vision. Your presence carries peace. You may not preach from a pulpit, but you'll preach with your life. Your discipline will speak louder than your words. Your clarity will shine brighter than your resume. Your consistency will open more doors than your networking ever could. Because favor follows obedience. And favor is not random. It finds those who show up when nobody's watching. And yet, let me be honest with you, this journey is not always romantic. There will be mornings when your body aches, when your mind is foggy, when the silence feels heavy. But that's where maturity is forged. Anyone can be faithful when it feels good. Maturity is proven when you show up in the dry places, in the uncertain moments, in the quiet valleys. Because you're not shown up for a feeling, you're shown up for formation. You are being built in secret, layer by layer, decision by decision, hour by hour. And while the world may celebrate moments, heaven rewards process. This process is slow, but sacred. It's not always visible, but it's always valuable. The world may not see the mornings you weep before God, the pages you write that no one reads, the prayers you pray for people who never say thank you, but heaven sees, and heaven records, and heaven rewards. Because nothing done in secret is ever wasted. Every morning you rise is a seed sown, a seed into your future, a seed into your children's future, a seed into the next generation. And while you may not see the full harvest today, know that something is growing. Something deep, something lasting, something eternal. You are breaking generational cycles just by being obedient in the dark. You are rewriting narratives. just by saying yes before the sun rises. You are walking in the footsteps of those who change history not with crowds, but with consecration. Those who understood that revival does not start with noise, it starts with a quiet yes. And it's in that quiet yes that you will begin to hear heaven's no. No to distraction, no to comparison, no to compromise, not because God is trying to punish you, but because he is trying to protect what he's building in you. You are not like everyone else. You cannot live like everyone else. You cannot sleep through your assignment and expect to walk in your anointing. Oil is expensive. Purpose is heavy. And calling is sacred. If you are being awakened, it is because you're being invited. And if you're being invited, it's because you are being trusted. Not everyone gets the call. But to those who do, there is grace to answer. Grace to rise. Grace to grow. Grace to become. And as you keep showing up, something beautiful happens. You begin to lose your appetite for what doesn't matter. The petty arguments, the need for validation, the hunger for applause, it begins to fade. You start to crave peace, purpose, presence. You begin to measure success not by what you gain, but by what you've given up to be faithful. And in that posture, you become dangerous to darkness. You become immovable, unshaken, anchored in something that can be bought or shaken or manipulated. Because you've learned how to be led by the stillness, not the storm. You've learned how to speak from overflow, not opinion. You've learned how to love from a full heart, not a fractured one. And when you walk into rooms, people may not know your story, but they will feel your oil. They will feel the residue of mornings spent in the presence of the one who formed you. They will feel the authority of someone who didn't just read about purpose, but who paid the price for it. That kind of presence cannot be manufactured. It is not the result of branding or personality. It is forged in the fire of surrender. It is cultivated in the consistency of sacrifice. It is nurtured in the secret place where nobody claps, where nobody affirms. When it's just you and God and the weight of calling whispering through the silence. You keep rising, even when your flesh protests, even when the world tempts you to conform, even when you question if it's worth it. Because you know that every time you rise, you're stepping closer to who you are created to be. And the more you rise, the more the old version of you fades. The one who needed approval, the one who feared failure, the one who played small to stay safe, that version starts to dissolve in the light of a renewed mind and a restored identity. You begin to speak with conviction. You begin to move with purpose. You begin to build with faith because your soul has been anchored in a place where truth reigns. There are things you will only hear when you are still. There are things you will only receive when you are quiet. There are things that will only be unlocked when you rise before the distractions begin. Don't miss those things. Don't trade them for more sleep or more scrolling or more busyness. The greatest wealth you'll ever acquire is wisdom. And wisdom doesn't shout. She whispers. She whispers between 3 and 5 in the morning to those who will rise, to those who will listen, to those who will obey. You are not just waking up early. You are awakening a generation. You are not just starting your day. You are starting a movement. a movement of clarity, a movement of courage, a movement of consecration. And it begins with a decision to show up every day, no matter what. And if you stay faithful to that decision, you will find that your life becomes a message. Your discipline becomes a doorway. Your obedience becomes a beacon for others. You become a reminder that it is still possible to live with purpose, to live with purity, to live with power. Not because you are perfect, but because you are present. Keep rising, keep becoming, keep listening. Because the voice that calls you in the quiet is the same voice that will lead you in the storm. And the one who meets you in the dark will walk with you in the light. So I leave you with this. If your eyes open between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., don't treat it as an inconvenience. Treat it as an invitation. That is not just the hour of awakening. It is the hour of becoming. It's when heaven whispers to the willing, when purpose reaches for the prepared, and when destiny demands a response. Do not roll over. Do not silence the call. Rise, because your future is waiting in that rise. Because what you build in those hours will shape what you walk in for the rest of your life. Rise. Because you were not created to sleep through your calling. You were created to wake the world with your obedience.